Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Christina Rodriguez. She is a positive parenting educator specializing in early childhood. She helps parents of preschoolers aged 3 to 6 who want to gentle parent but often feel judged and unsupported by reassuring them that they don't have to be perfect and giving them the tools to be able to raise their children with kindness instead of fear, while simultaneously focusing on self-compassion and the knowledge that being a good parent 51% of the time is already awesome. She's joining us from Bavaria, Germany. She's a Portuguese living in Germany. Welcome, Christina. It is a pleasure to have you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So please share with us today, in your own words, who is Christina?
I'm just a mom, like probably most people who are listening here, also parent. And I have a 4-year-old son who is by far my biggest teacher and has brought me a lot of personal growth. And I do believe children allow us to grow if we let it. And it brought me where I am today. It was because I was on this journey, and because we get this idea, like I think society has the idea that the moment you become a parent, a lightning strikes you and you become enlightened and you know everything about parenting. And then people tell you, what you don't know, you will learn along the way. But, no one would ever give you a car to your hands and tell you, you don't learn. You will learn along the way. No, they make you do a driver's test and actually learn how to drive, right? And parenting is so much harder than driving. And no one teaches you, and they just expect you to do everything by yourself. And that's why I help parents do that, because it is hard work and it's really unfair that people just assume we know everything.
Totally. And how did you come to learn all it is that it comes with parenting?
Yeah, for me, it was like, I don't know everything by far. I'm still very imperfect, and I think I will until I die, right? Because we are all imperfect beings. We are human beings. But when I became pregnant, I never had thought about parenting. What I know about parenting, I learned from seeing my mom, my aunts, my family, other adults as I grew up. Taking care of my cousins, and I never really put much thought into parenting. And then I became pregnant, and I started just searching. So the first thing I searched was actually how to bathe your kid. Like, what do you use to bathe your kid? Like, what product should you use? And I was really overwhelmed with the amount of contradictory information you find online about just such a simple question, like what to use to bathe your child. Should you use just water? Should you use a oil? Should you use some, mild soap? Should you soap? Sorry, Germany in the way. Should you use all this? What do you use? And this was just one question, and it took me like 1 week to find the answer. And by the way, I didn't really find the answer. And I was like, okay, next topic. Then I started learning about sudden infant death syndrome. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, why didn't anyone tell me about this? And I started like freaking out. And I started reading a lot of books, because when you're pregnant, you have a lot of time, right? It's like, you are always tired, and you are always complaining that you're tired and swollen. But actually, when the kid comes, that's when the hard work starts, right? And when I was pregnant, I started reading all these books. And at the time, I started reading also some parenting books. And a really good book that I recommend everyone to read is called, Peaceful Parents, Happy Kids. And it's by Dr. Laura Merkel, I think that's her name. And it's a really good book because it gives you an overview of basically gentle parenting since birth till adulthood almost. So it's a very compact book that is like, I really enjoyed. It was a very good first approach to me to gentle parenting, because I had no idea what gentle parenting was before. Or sometimes, by the way, people sometimes call it positive parenting or positive discipline. It's all the same, just different words for the same thing. And at the time I thought, one day I might learn more about this, but right now I just have to focus on how to bathe the baby. And then later, when my son was about 1 year old, that's when I was like, oh, I really need to learn, because now he's throwing food on the floor. I don't know what to do. I always said I would never scream at my kids. I always saw people screaming at their kids, and I was like, what an awful parent, because we are all perfect parents before we were kids, right? It's always like that. And then when I started dealing with all this challenging behavior, I started being a screaming mom. I started like, stop it. What are you doing? And I was like, it's just a baby. Why am I screaming at my little baby? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like this. So I wanted to learn, but I didn't just want to read a book. I wanted someone to teach me. And I really, because I'm a person who I really like to dive deep into things. So I was like, I'm going to, I found this certification from the Positive Discipline Association that was for kindergarten teachers, daycare and kindergarten teachers. And they taught a lot about childhood development and all those things. And I took it not because I wanted to teach, but because I wanted to learn for myself. And then I really loved it. I learned that a lot of it has to do with us self-regulating and healing our wounds from the past, because we pass along to our children a lot of good things from our parents, but also bad things that came from our childhood. So then I did the certification on encouragement certification. I forgot the name. But anyway, it's basically using positive discipline to reparent ourselves, like gently reparenting ourselves, understanding why the things that happened to us when we were children have such an impact on us now. And I was really like, wow, I love positive discipline. I think this is such a message. I want to pass this along to other people, because I had a lot of people started asking me stuff. And then that's when I decided to become a parent educator. So I became also a certified parent educator. And since then, I've been teaching parents. And I love it, because I really feel like many parents, they believe that it's very hard. Like I have many parents tell me, I think that's great, but it would never work with my kid. You don't know my kid. It would never work with my kid. If I take away the screen from my kid, they really have a meltdown. It's like, it would never work. This, oh, you're sad, let's hug. But, and I understand that, I understand that, because social media gives you this idea that it's like only perfect parents or like Zen masters can gentle parent. But children don't need us to be perfect. They just need connection. And that's what I teach. It's every tiny little step you do in the right direction is a good thing.
Totally. Wow. Great. That's amazing that, you were able to go. First, you kind of went there for yourself, and then you got so inspired and excited about this learning that you decided to share it with others. That's amazing. What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? I think actually, it's strange, because I think as parents, we spend a lot of time thinking, how can we have time for ourselves? And like, oh, you have the kids right now so that I can have time for myself. But actually, the moments I'm really happy are the moments I am with my son and husband, actually.
Awesome. That's great. So how do you help people? What kind of challenges do people come to you with?
Well, everything, right? So I think that the biggest challenge people come to me with is that they want to do things. They want this, so they do want to have a relationship of connection and all that, but they just don't believe that they can do it, or that their child is able to, be gentle parented. And they come to me more like that, like, okay, I understand this all sounds amazing, but it doesn't work, because I am not a very patient person, and I just lose my temper and I scream, and I don't know how not to do that. Or like, I am maybe even a patient person, but my kid is really just always pushing my buttons. And I have like a few last week I had a mother that told me, my daughter She will not listen unless I scream. Like, I don't want to scream, but my daughter doesn't listen unless I scream. So it's really, usually people think like that gentle parenting only applies to other people's kids, to other people as parents, and it would not apply to them or to their children. And I think the fault of that is, as I said, social media, because you do have this idea that like everything is perfect, like you see on social media, the child is having a meltdown and the mom hugs, and then they eat ice cream and they are happy ever ever after. But it's not like that, right? Those people also face challenges, and that mom also has a meltdown maybe like 5 minutes before that she had a meltdown. And there are no perfect parents, and it's not about being perfect. Actually, I strongly believe that it's very important we are imperfect, and that we show our children that we are imperfect, so that they themselves know that it's okay to be imperfect. This is really an important thing, because many of us, we grew up with this idea that our parents know everything, and we only found out they don't know everything when we were about teenagers, like early teenagers, and we were like, nah, 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 nah. But until then, we were like, oh, my parents they know everything, they are perfect. And that's really detrimental, because you feel like you are not enough, that you don't meet their expectations, that you don't meet your own expectations, because you're always like, maybe I had 80% in a test, I should have had 90%. Or maybe, like you always feel like you should be better. And this creates really a lot of problems growing up, and then as you're an adult also. So it's really important that we show our children that we are imperfect, that we make mistakes, and also very importantly, how to make amends after we make the mistakes.
Yes, totally true. We are all human after all. We can make mistakes, and sometimes we want to be perfect. But you're so right. Is showing kids the imperfection that you are, and showing how you strive to be better, not perfect, just better. So speaking of that, how would you solve a tantrum when a kid is having a tantrum in a gentle, peaceful way?
Well, the first thing we have to remember is that we cannot access the rational part of our brains when our emotions are high. That's why many of us, we say things we don't want to say when we are feeling, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that because I was so mad or whatever. And so we cannot really, we know what to do, right? Like, I think people are like, tell me what to do, but I know that everyone deep down, they know what to do, right? If your kid wants a chocolate and it's time for lunch, you know that what you have to do is to say no, right? But the problem is how to do that when you are feeling so overwhelmed with emotion, when your child is feeling so overwhelmed with emotion. So I don't think the problem is that you don't know what to do. I think the problem is that you cannot access that part of your brain because you're feeling so many emotions. Because at that moment, you just wanted to stop. You want your kid to stop screaming. You want people to stop judging you. You just want to leave that place. You wanted to stop. And so you end up doing things you later regret. So the first thing you have to do always is bring your emotions down so that you can access the rational part of your brain. That's the first thing. There are many ways we can do this. One simple way is to just breathe. Sometimes we need to close our eyes, maybe, cover your ears so that you don't have any other stimuli, right? So that you are able to just really focus on your breathing, so that you can bring your heart rate down. Because when you take deep breaths, your heart rate slowly goes down. And that just helps your body leave that fight or flight mode. Because right now your body's like, let's leave this. No, let's solve this. And you need to tell your body, no, it's okay. Calm down. Bring this down so that then you can access the rational part of your brain. And then when you can access your rational part of your brain, that's it. You're already in a great way. The second thing you have to do is do the same for your child, because if it was already very hard for you and you have an adult fully developed brain, imagine how hard it is for your child who doesn't know what they are feeling. They don't even very often know the names for emotions, especially in these early ages. And they just feel all these. They don't know appropriate ways to deal with their emotions, and they really need guidance. And it's important that we remember that every challenging behavior is just a need, some learning that needs guidance. Is your child behaving age appropriately? to something they are feeling or experiencing, and they don't know how to do it differently. And they need guidance. They need to learn. Sometimes they need repetition, because we all learn by repetition, right? Maybe you already told them once, but they still continue to need that. And it's your job as a parent to do that. So you need to bring your child's heart rate down, right? You need to bring their emotions down. And how can we do that? We do that by connecting. Because when you think about, like, imagine, for instance, you are having a really bad day at work. Your boss was really like an awful person. Don't want to say bad words here, but an awful person. And then you are like telling a friend, you have no idea what he said. What a bad person. It is in that, in that. And your friend says, yeah, that's really like nasty. What a nerve, you know. You feel understood, your heart rate immediately goes down. So this is what we need. We need empathy. We need to show our children that we understand what they are feeling, and that what they are feeling is normal. So we say, oh, I can see you're really mad right now, or disappointed, whatever it is. And this is a normal thing, because mommy also feels like that sometimes. Everyone feels like that sometimes. This is perfectly normal. I can totally understand they're feeling that way, because you want the chocolate and the chocolate is really yummy. And then stop. Because if you are with your friend and your friend says that your heart rate went down, you're like, someone understands me. Okay. But if your friend keeps saying, yeah, look at that, then your heart rate starts going up again, because you're like, yeah. And you don't want that, right? So you don't do that to your child. You empathize once, and then you stop. And then you just connect. So hug your child. If very often in these early ages, they want hugs. If they don't feel like a hug, you just say, I'm going to sit here and be here, as whenever you want, we can hug. Or, just connect, just stay there. And just pat on the shoulder, whatever it needs to help them bring it down. And only when both you and your child are both feeling with their emotions down, that's when you can correct. Because that's when you are accessing the rational part of your brain, and when your child is able to access theirs. So that's when you then correct, and you say, we cannot have chocolate right now, because we need to eat lunch. Put something healthy in your tummy. And if you put the chocolate there won't be space there anymore. See, your tummy is small, but you can only do this after you first connected. And this might sound like obvious, but is of course very hard. This is something you need to practice. This is like, I don't know, let's say you want to paint something. The first time you make a painting, maybe it's really crappy, right? Because it's your first time doing it. But the more you practice, the better you will get at it. And it's the same with parenting.
Thank you. Yes, I love that. And very, very good example. Connect first, then correct.
Yeah, definitely. And it also works with adults, by the way.
Yeah, totally. Yes. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Just be yourself, and it will work out somehow.
Very good. What advice can you give for single parents?
Well, I think that it must be very hard being a single parent. I'm not a single mom. I already find it really, really hard to be a mom. And I have a very supporting partner that really helps me with everything. And I think I cannot even imagine how hard it must be being a single parent, because you have to do everything by yourself. You have a lot on your shoulders in terms of responsibility. And I'm sure if a mom that has someone constant help always feels like they are not enough, I'm sure that as a single parent, that feeling must be double. And so I think it's really, really important to practice self-compassion. I think that is the biggest thing that a single parent, if I had to advise a single parent, would be to practice self-compassion. So every day before you go to bed, just think of 2 things you did well today. Because, our brain is like really focusing on the negative. It's just the way we are wired. So maybe we're a great parent the whole day, and at the end of the day, you snapped, you screamed at your kid, whatever it is. You will go to bed being like, I'm the worst parent, and you need to change that, because that's not helpful. It's not helpful to you, of course, because you're going to have that bad feeling and, going to bed really feeling bad. Maybe you don't sleep as good. The next day you're feeling like crap. But on top of that, it's also bad for your relationship with your child, because when we go into this journey of self-pity and we forget that we are the adults and this is a child, and it's not about us, it's about the child. And at any moment, it's always a good moment to stop and say, okay, I made a mistake. Mistakes are just opportunities to model amends to my child. I made a mistake, and now I'm going to explain to my child that I made a mistake. Look, I made a mistake. I screamed at you. It's not okay to scream. You should never let people scream at you. This is not okay. And we are all imperfect. And I also screamed. You will also make mistakes sometimes. Everyone makes mistakes. And I'm really, really sorry, because it was not fair to you that I screamed at you. And you take 2 minutes. These 2 minutes will make you go to bed better. Your child, instead of thinking that it's their fault, because children always think it's their fault, especially in this small age, they believe the world revolves around them. So they believe that everything that you do is because of them. So it's really important to tell them it's not because of them. It was not because they did something. It was because you couldn't control your emotions, right? And so you need to tell that to your child. Your child will feel immediately better. They will want to go and play with their fire truck, and you will feel better. You go to bed better at night. And having this switch, this being like, I'm feeling sorry for myself because I'm the worst mom alive, to being like, no, I just made a mistake and now I need to make amends. To make this switch, you need to practice, you need to train your brain. And the way we do this is by practicing self-compassion every single day. So that's why I recommend that when you go to bed, think of 2 things you did well today. And if you can't think of anything, because sometimes you're having really a bad day, and we're like, no, I can't do anything right. Then just go to the little things. I matched my socks today. That's great,
I totally love it. Agree with you. I recommend that as well. I do 3 things that went well that day, because yeah, you're so right. We are so preconditioned to focus on the negatives, because I think as when we were growing up, we were more heard the no than the yes. And whenever we make a mistake, it was always blown out of proportion. And whenever we did something great, it was like, yay, great, and move on. You don't kind of spend a lot of time in that. You spend more time discussing the problem, being negative, making a big deal about it. So this is how our normal state. And yeah, we gotta unlearn that, refocus on the positive, shift our internal how we are feeling. And you're so right, that reflects better for our children, and we feel better ourselves. And when we, I call it, at night we read fairy tales to children so they feel better. What if we read a fairy tale for ourselves by saying those things that went well and have a better night's sleep, as opposed to being anxious or feeling like said pity for yourself? So I love that.
And we are all in the same boat here. It's like sometimes we think we are the only ones. Like, I'm the worst mom. Like, we always think this, I'm the worst mom. Like that, by you being the worst, it means that every single mom in the world is better than you. That just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not rational at all. And there's so many other people that are feeling like that at that moment. And I think we really have to have self-compassion, because this is a 24/7 job. Like, and if you're a single parent, much more, right? No sick days. You can be with, a lot of fever. You still need to take care of your little kid, and they still want to play with you. And there's no holidays, because going on holidays with a kid is just taking care of your kid in a different place where you don't have the things you need. So it's even harder, and all the planning and packing and all the things. So it's constant pressure, and we need to pat ourselves in the back, because unfortunately society doesn't do that for us, right? On the contrary, society is like, you're a mom, right? That must be great. Just play with your kid. What a lovely thing.
Yeah. What is your superpower? if you had to pick one?
One of my teachers, she once told me that your superpower is usually the thing that you don't like about yourself, but that actually people like about you. And it really is. I think it is actually. And my superpower is to overshare, because when I overshare and I talk too much about what's happening with me and all my imperfections and everything, that makes parents think, okay, I don't have to be perfect either, it's okay. Look at her. She just told me she screams at her kid and she's a positive parent educator. I can also scream, and I think that's a superpower.
All right, awesome. Any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
Yeah, I invite anyone who's listening who has a child between the ages of 3 and 6 to join my Facebook group. It's called Parents of Preschoolers. And there's always many things happening. Right now, there's a workshop going on, a free workshops. Sometimes we have expert interviews. Sometimes there's always things. And almost every day, I also share positive discipline tools and real life examples of how to gentle parent little kids. So yeah, come join.
Awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Yeah, I would just share that, I don't know if anyone listening knows about Bluey. Bluey is a cartoon for kids that my son likes more or less, and I like much more than him actually, because it's really good for moms. And there was one episode of Bluey that one of the moms told another mom, there's something you need to know. You're doing great. And so that's the message I want to leave.
I think it's a very important message that we often don't hear too often.
Unfortunately, isn't it?
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. And I love how you are helping people. If they would like to connect and learn more about you, where would they go?
So the Parents of Preschoolers Facebook group is one place, and if they don't have a preschooler, they can follow me also on Facebook or Instagram under Changing Parenting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll include everything in episode notes. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was nice talking to you also.